thank you, Sheena, and thanks to everyone for coming along. I know it's not the best time of year to try to do anything like this, but everyone's got busy lives. So we're going to move on just towards a small presentation by Colonsay. They've got some good news to share there. Sarah, I think, is just going through some slides just now. She's going to do a very quick introductory slide on behalf of CHT. For those that don't know us, the main thing from that slide, in my opinion, is the word community. Often people pick out housing, but I think our ethos and the focus of the board is very much about community and the housing central to that, but it's all the spin-offs, and you'll see from some of the photos on the slides there that there's a lot more produced from the work than just housing. Again, you'll see from the slides that most projects now, and Colonsay will affirm that, are mixed use, so it's not just housing, it's mixed tenure, so various different affordable housing tenures, and it's mixed partner. And again, Colonsay is a good example of that. Over the last few years, CHT have been busy developing a range of housing options, and I think we're starting to see the benefits of that now, and that's creating, in our opinion, a very strong community-led sector. And we've got an awful lot of excellent projects that are community-led out there just now. And between ourselves and South of Scotland Communities Housing Trust, we're able to provide services across Scotland. So I think that's a summary of CHT. Happy to talk to anyone who wants more details. But on to the main item on the agenda, and that's to welcome Colonsay Community Development Company and ask them to do their presentation. I'd like to congratulate them on the funding package, working extremely well with local businesses such as Maui, who are a significant funder there, and delighted to see the announcement in the last week or two from Scottish Government of £1.2 million of grant funding towards that project. And the project's going to be delivering, as we'll hear just now, 12 houses, all either affordable or key worker, which is fantastic, alongside 2 commercial units. So I'd like to hand over now to you guys at Colonsay, and welcome. Look forward to your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting us along to your AGM. We've got a short presentation for you, just about our current Colonsay housing project. I'm Grace Johnston, I'm the property coordinator.
I'm McNeill, I'm one of the directors of Communities Housing Trust.
So I'll just share my screen with you. Okay, so we thought we'd start with our crowdfund video, which we released earlier this year, because it's a good way of setting the scene for the project. Hope you can all see that.
No,
I'm Grace, no, we can't see it.
Oh, bear with me 1 second. Can you see it now?
no,
I can. Yes.
no, I can't. Maybe
I can't. How random.
Yes, I've just got a black screen with a statement. Grace Johnson has started screen sharing.
Yeah, so have I. That's all I have also.
Can anybody see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Oh,
Just bear with us 1 second, sorry guys.
Yeah, 1 second.
Should we be doing something?
No, just wait, Sheena. Just wait at them. It'll...
Let's just try to find time screen.
Got it now, thank you.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Okay. Okay, so just to give you a little bit more background about why we need community-led housing in Colonsay. Colonsay is one of the most remote Scottish islands, and we have got a small ageing population of around 130 full-time residents, and we have a worrying number of young people. The lack of working age people on the island has been putting essential services in a precarious position, and this includes the fire service and the air service. You'll have seen in the video that the school roll was dropping to 4 this year, but we've actually just lost another family. So there's only going to be 2 children in the primary school this year, and they're both from the same family. The island struggles to attract and maintain families and young people, in large part due to the lack of affordable housing, and over 40% of the island's housing stock is being used as second homes or holiday lets. On the rare occasion that homes are offered for sale, local people are usually priced out of the market.
In order to try and combat this, the CCDC engaged with Communities Housing Trust to carry out an in-depth housing needs survey. At that point, it was
Can I cut in and ask you to move closer or to more where Grace was, because we heard Grace very clearly, but not yourself.
Oh, sorry about that. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just said there that in 2019, CCDC, the development company, we commissioned Communities Housing Trust to carry out an in-depth housing needs survey. So this was obviously undertaken a few years ago, but it even then showed a very worrying picture. 2 surveys were conducted to encompass the wider community, one for residents and one for non-residents. And from the responses in combination with the census data, it was clear that the demographic of the island was severely biased towards elderly households and very few young people resident on the island full time. 75% of the respondents were 45 years old and above, and only 11% at the time were 29 years old or less.
Some key takeaways from the survey. 90% either generally agreed or strongly agreed with the statement, our community needs more affordable homes for rent. 20 respondents had friends or family members that had moved away from the island because they couldn't find suitable accommodation. And when asked what would encourage more families to remain or move to the area, 80% of comments made related to the provision of affordable housing. So why community-led housing for Colonsay?
One of the main things, obviously, is to address a fairly urgent need. And the urgency of that need has only gotten more critical since we first commissioned this project. We have, obviously from the figures there and from the crowdfunding video, seen that the amount of young working people on the island is critically low, and for us to be facing losing services such as the fire service, somebody to drive the ambulance, somebody to bring in the plane, and actually a number of times recently we've nearly had not enough people to tie up the ferries, which creates a huge knock-on effect. So just to be able to have the opportunity to increase our population, to build capacity, was the main driver for us.
Community-led housing means that we've been able to work with CHT to develop an allocations policy that reflects the need of local residents and allow for population growth. The main aims of the policy are to improve living conditions for the existing residents of Colonsay, to contribute to the viability of the local economy through the provision of accommodation, to maintain or increase primary school numbers, and the retention or growth of population to ensure the survival of essential services.
Another reason why community-led housing was attractive to us is that it ensures that we can get an appropriate mix of housing, and one that best meets the specific gaps in the housing stock that we currently have. We've in the past been very reliant on rental properties, and as those started to slip into the private sector, the houses that we were able to cling on to and have ended up being not that appropriate for the people who need them on the island.
Another reason is that we can design and build homes that are high quality and are energy efficient and address fuel poverty as well.
Another reason that is something we talk about a lot with such a small population, empowering the community and creating capacity within the local organisations like the development company is a huge reason, is really benefited by community-led housing. It's created, this project has created jobs, it will continue to create jobs, it will demonstrate to our community, to ourselves as well, that we have the capacity and the ability to deliver such a huge and meaningful project.
As you saw in the video, there's a distinct lack of home ownership opportunities on Colonsay at the moment. The average house price is around £250,000, which is significantly higher than the local authority average. And phase 1 of the project will see 2 homes for affordable purchase.
And in tandem with that, we wanted to be able to maintain the affordability of these houses. Something that happens a lot here is the few rental properties that there are. Occasionally, as obviously renting to families year round isn't as economically viable as offering your house for holiday lets and holiday properties. So the rural housing burdens that we've discussed with CHT will now enable us to keep them in the community long term. So this has been a project that's been going on for a very long time. Both Grace and I have worked with the Community Development Company for a lot of years, many years. And after several years of trying this, it was when we engaged with Communities Housing Trust that the tide really turned. It's allowed us to finally get this project off the ground, to work with all of the local partners and the community, as well as external partners, to develop this very ambitious project.
So our main partner in this project is Community Housing Trust, and they've supported the community via the development company in purchasing 2 pieces of land in Scalasaig. One site will provide up to 24 affordable homes of mixed tenure, so that's self-build, low-cost home ownership and affordable rent. And the other site will provide 2 business units. And CHT continues to project manage the development on behalf of CCDC. We're very lucky to be awarded £390,000 from the Scottish Land Fund towards the purchase of the Scalasaig site. Highlands and Islands Enterprise has been providing business and financial support to CCDC for a number of years and has been instrumental in helping CCDC get to this crucial point of the housing project. In 2020, Argyll and Bute Council awarded CCDC £28,900 towards the purchase of the land. Argyll and Bute have recognised the need for more affordable housing in Colonsay and have been really supportive of the project from its inception. As Ronnie mentioned earlier, the Rural Housing Fund recently made a grant offer of £1.2 million towards the project, which has meant that we're finally in a position to sign our contract with TSL, and they're hoping to get the project underway next month. Maui, who operate the Island Fish Farm, have offered financial support in exchange for housing provision for their workers, and without their help, we definitely couldn't have got the project to this point. And also not forgetting the hard work of CCDC in the crowdfunding campaign, which actually raised over £30,000.
So, excuse me. So phase 1 of this project, as Ronnie mentioned earlier, will include the 12 houses, 9 of which will be CCDC properties for the mixed tenure of ownership, rent and self-build. 3 of those properties will be staff housing for Maui, as they have a 2-week on, 2-week off shift pattern. So there'll be, and 1 will be a house for their manager, which will hopefully be full-time residence for a family, as well as the 2 business units, which will be going up to, again, build capacity, build the economy of the island, and hopefully work in tandem with the housing to develop employment and secure viable lives on the island for people who move us. Obviously, we've experienced the expected delays due to COVID, so things have been a little bit rocky to decide when we were actually going to get to the stage of putting up these houses. But we've been persistent. I think that it's been a key factor for us is that we, alongside the great advocacy of our agents at Communities Housing Trust, we've been really driven in making sure the project goes ahead. As demonstrated earlier, Colonsay is at a critical point, and it's at this stage getting worse by the day. So we know that this development is absolutely key to the future and sustainability of the community. We absolutely couldn't have made it this far without the support of our partners and of the wider community. In particular, Communities Housing Trust have been instrumental. So we're very grateful to be able to share our joint successes with you today. And thank you very much for hearing from us. I think we'll maybe take some questions now, if anybody has any.
Yeah, I'll just stop sharing my screen. We're back. We're back.
That was great. Thanks very much for that, Grace and Caitlin. That was really interesting. Well done, and congratulations again on the work you guys have done. It's fantastic to see getting to that stage.
Thank you.
Yep, that was a very good presentation, and yes, certainly for those of us struggling with housing in the mainland, we realise how lucky we are compared to yourselves.
Yeah. So we're opening it up to Grace and Caitlin and myself are happy to take any questions you might have. Anyone? David?
Yeah.
Thanks, Ronnie, and thanks very much for the presentation. That was fantastic. I suppose it was just to ask, you said in the presentation it took a long time, there was a lot of work, but then that turned when the Communities Housing Trust got involved. I just wondered if you could say a bit more of why it was so challenging. Well, I mean, I can completely understand why it would be challenging, but what you think the big barriers are to developing affordable housing in remote areas, and what needs to be done to overcome that.
Sorry, could I ask anyone, David, maybe just explain who you are?
Yeah, apologies. Apologies, should have done that. I'm David Stewart and I work for the Scottish Land Commission. So we're shortly going to publish a review of land for housing, and we also about a year ago published a report on land for affordable rural housing that included, it had quite a lot of input from Communities Housing Trust and their expertise and experience on what works. So that's really where I'm coming from with my question.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly ambitious project for such a small community. And I think, so previously we'd struggled to conduct negotiations with the landowner. And that was the stumbling block really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that the main problem was access to land, and having it's when you kind of realise that the mechanisms in place, like the community right to buy mechanisms, are often a levering tool when negotiating, but actually when one landowner holds all of the power, it sometimes isn't as strong a levering tool as it maybe could be. Yeah. And I think the other thing as well is, again, it comes back to capacity. And when everybody is so intimately involved in island life, a lot of people working with and for the landowner, a lot of people we're all in very different situations. So having a group consensus to then take that to the negotiation table was another factor. So I think what Communities Housing Trust and our other partners have offered is a confidence, an experience in getting us to negotiate these difficult and often very challenging issues of just getting to the first stage of having the land to build has been the big problem for us. So that's what we have to get over the hurdle.
That's great, thank you.
That's very true.
Anyone else got any questions there? Pamela?
I have two questions. First of all, for Grace and Caitlin, thank you. That was a really great presentation. I'm a project officer on a similar project in Scalasaig, so it's wonderful to see the next step, I suppose, in seeing you achieve the land ownership and some of the bigger hurdles that we're working on as well. I see that you're building commercial units as part of your project, and I'm just wondering how that came about. How did you evidence the need for that, and where did you go to for funding for that? I know that you can housing fund, but maybe there are other routes that you followed. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, we conducted a survey that demonstrated a very clear need for the business units with the help of HIE, and it's HIE that are hopefully going to provide the funding for the units. We haven't had confirmation of the funding yet, but we're very confident that that will happen.
That's great, that's brilliant. So my second question is to Ronnie, and I know that over the next few years, all house builders and developers are going to be thinking a lot more about net zero and what that means for homes of the future. And I just wondered what your thoughts are on that and how it may change the work that you're doing, or how you go about sourcing housing or different contractors. What are your thoughts on net zero?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Pamela. There's a number of new regulations come through that not only affect the capital cost of building affordable housing, but also the repairs, maintenance, and revenue costs, and that can be seen as a challenge. But we prefer to look at it as an opportunity. I think there's opportunities there to create more skills, either upskill existing businesses or create new businesses that can deal with some of these issues, you know, specialists in net zero heating or specialists in fire suppression, for example, because at the moment, especially in the north and the more island communities, there's limited skills and having to import, if you like, contractors from Central Belt is not likely to prove overly viable. So it's an opportunity to create some circular economy, create more jobs in the remote rural areas. And, you know, all these initiatives, net zero or fire suppression or an increase to the building regulations, it all helps to make housing better in the long run. So I think there are challenges, but I think there's opportunities to be grasped there as well. And I think, you know, in the long run, such as you're seeing in the likes of Colonsay there, doing mixed development, not just housing on the site, but having some commercial activity or social activity, as you'll see on most of the projects. You know, Staffen's providing a health centre, Strontian's provided a school, Gairloch's provided commercial and youth facilities as well. So being able to provide a more holistic view of development that impacts on the economy and the social fabric is all positive. So yeah, definitely some challenges moving forward, but I think it's more about the opportunities, and I think the community-led sector is in a good place to grasp that.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. I think it is a good chance for opportunities. Thanks for your answer there.
Has anybody else got questions there at all?
I guess I was just curious if Grace and Caitlin, if you think that you might be able to, for the families that have left quite recently, do you expect to be able to tempt them back, or are you looking for fully new residents?
It's a bit of a tricky one, because one of the sort of, it's easy to talk about the sort of the families who can't make it here in strict terms about affordable housing, and although that often sits at the root of the problems, what happens, I've found anyway, as somebody who has been made homeless here and had to leave, it brings such difficult emotional sort of traumatic stuff when you kind of don't feel like you're able to make your life in the place that you're putting so much energy into. So although it is tricky to go back to the people, we have tried to do a bit of outreach to families who've left, and although some of them are definitely keen to come back if the opportunity arose, some people are, I think, just a bit hurt from the situation. And I have certainly myself had to really come back around. It took me a couple of years to put myself back in the space where I thought I wanted to be back here. I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Grace.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not insurmountable, and I think we will tempt some families back. But yeah, I think we're hoping to attract new families too. I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's so tricky. It's a very emotional thing.
Yeah, totally. No, I really appreciate that. No, thanks so much. It's good to know that as well, that aspect of it, that it's quite, the trauma aspect of it can be quite overlooked maybe, or underappreciated, I guess.
Does Maui employ local people as well? You're saying that their workers are 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, so the houses change. Are any of them likely to want to come and stay permanently in Colonsay?
Yeah, so again, we actually, at our meeting with MSPs Mary Goujon and Jenny Minto, we had a sit down with Maui to talk about this, and it transpired during the conversation that actually out of the original, was it 5 or 6 local staff that were employed when this fish farm first started, all but one of them has left, and almost all of that was down to the lack of like full-time accommodation, because the way which Maui operates with their shift pattern, they need to free up the beds to bring in the next shift.
Oh, right.
So there wasn't actually full-time accommodation for any of those. One was my brother, who ended up moving down to Stirling with me when we both were made homeless at the same time. And another one of the workers was living in a derelict house that was shortly thereafter knocked down. So we're hoping that by creating, specific spaces for the Maui staff, as well as in combination with the new housing, that we'll maybe be able to tempt some of the new, it will be new staff, I think, or my brother, he also wants to stay. We'll hope that we'll be able to have the capacity to provide them with somewhere to live if they wish to bring their families over and stay here full time.
That would be good, yes. That would seem to me to be a really good move forward, rather than just the 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, which gives you community, really, does it? It doesn't help your community very much.
No, and it also works really well for Maui. I mean, my brother's currently the only one who is a local, who's based on the island throughout the whole year. So it really works for them to have him here, especially in the winter when, wild Atlantic winds are blowing pieces off the cages and Liam gets to go out and rescue them.
Yes.
So actually having a full-time staff base on the island makes a big difference for them too.
Mm-hmm. Good, good.
Excellent. Has anyone else got any questions at all? I mean, I think, just picking up on that point, I think, if you are to attract new families and make it possible for maybe some of the Maui employees to stay there, from our perspective, that's the importance in being able to offer a range of housing tenures. And we hope that what's been provided there will be attractive to a range of different families and workers. So well done, great.
I just think it's wonderful that it was Di Alexander who started off the Small Communities Housing Trust. And it's coming kind of full circle, and here we are in Colonsay helping you all progress, which I'm sure Di will be really pleased to hear about.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're just so grateful to have had all of the sort of different strands of this hugely complex project align, and to have had the guidance of Ronnie and John has just been completely invaluable.
Thanks for that.